So here are some derivative rules. The derivative of sine of x is cosine of x. For cosine of x, it's negative sine of x. For tangent of x, it's secant squared of x. For cosecant x, it's negative cosecant x, cotangent x. For secant x, it's secant x, tangent x. And for cotangent x, it's negative cosecant squared x. So let's say you have the function y equals 3 tangent of x. You would just use the derivative rule for tangent of x, which is secant squared x, and keep the coefficient the same, so you're left with 3 secant squared x. So let's say you have the function y equals sine of 7x. You have to use what's called the chain rule, and the chain rule is made up of outer and inner. The outer is going to be your sine of 7x, and the inner is going to be 7x. So you have to multiply the derivative of the outer, which is cosine 7x, by the derivative of the inner, which is just going to be 7. So you're going to end up with y prime is equal to 7 cosine of 7x. So you're really always using the chain rule, even for the function y equals sine of x. So your outer is sine of x, and your inner is just x. So you're doing the derivative of sine of x, which is cosine of x, times the derivative of x, which is just 1. So your derivative is just cosine of x. So let's say you have a function with an exponent in it, like this one. All you're going to do is bring down the exponent, and you're still going to use the outer-inner rule of the chain rule, but in this case, the outer is going to be the original trig function, and then the inner is going to be the derivative of that trig function. So what you're going to have is y prime equal to 2 times your outer function, which is the original trig function, so times tangent x. And then you're going to multiply by the derivative, which is secant squared x. So you're going to end up with y prime is equal to 2 tangent x secant squared x. So here's a little song to remember all of this. I want to learn trig derivatives really, really bad, but I don't know where to even start. Sine, cosine, and tangent, cosecant, secant, and cotangent. So many trig functions to derive, but there are just some simple rules that I need to memorize. And once I learn these rules, I can finally know how to find the derivatives of all the trig functions. Yeah, so here are the rules for sine, cosine, and tangent, and cosecant, and secant, and cotangent. Let's start with sine. The derivative is just cosine, and for cosine, the derivative is negative sine, and for tangent, the derivative is just secant squared. Now let's look at cotangent. Kind of similar, just a little different. The derivative is negative cosecant squared. Now let's look at cosecant and secant. Again, kind of similar, but kind of different. For cosecant, it's negative cosecant cotangent, and for secant, it's secant tangent. But there are some simple rules that I need to memorize. And once I learn these rules, I can finally know how to find the derivatives of all the trig functions. Of all the trig functions. Now let's step it up a notch and learn about the chain rule. Just remember outer and inner. Just use the rules that we learned before, so take the derivative of the whole thing. But this time, pay attention to here and take the derivative of the inside. So here's what you're left with when you use the chain rule. Pretty easy, right? Not too bad. Now what if there's an exponent in the function? Have no fear, you still use the chain rule. Bring the exponent down and then multiply by the original function and then the derivative.